My family mocked my illness. Quit pretending for sympathy. I said sure. Then I stopped funding their lavish lifestyles. They didn't see that coming and were suddenly apologizing as their credit cards got declined. I, 35M, never thought I'd be the type to cut off my family financially. But when your own blood accuses you of faking a serious medical condition for attention, something inside you just breaks. It started about 8 months ago when I began experiencing these debilitating migraines. Not your regular headaches, the kind that make you vomit, see auras, and basically render you useless for days. After the third one in 2 weeks, I finally dragged myself to a doctor. The diagnosis wasn't great: chronic vestibular migraines with a possible neurological component. The doctor prescribed medication, lifestyle changes, and regular follow-ups. I was relieved to have answers, but worried about what this meant for my future. What I didn't anticipate was my family's reaction. Another excuse to get out of family gatherings. My sister smirked when I mentioned missing our monthly dinner due to a migraine episode. "You've always been dramatic," my mother chimed in. "Remember when you claimed you had mono in high school just to skip that math final?" For context, I've been the family's financial backbone for years. After hitting it big with my tech startup 5 years ago, I've paid for everything from my parents' mortgage to my sister's kids' private school tuition. My brother's failed business ventures? Covered those too. Family vacations? All on me. I tried explaining the severity of my condition, even invited them to a doctor's appointment. They declined, of course. The breaking point came during what should have been a simple family dinner at my place. I had a migraine coming on. I could feel the telltale pressure building behind my eyes, but I pushed through because I'd already canceled twice before. Halfway through dinner, the aura started. For those unfamiliar, it's like someone splashed paint across your vision. I excused myself, took my medication, and returned to the table wearing my prescribed tinted glasses. "Oh look, he's got the special glasses on now," my brother laughed. "What's next, a cane? Maybe a service dog?" My mother sighed dramatically. "Honey, we know work's been stressful, but this attention-seeking is getting old." My sister nodded in agreement. "Quit pretending for sympathy. We all have headaches sometimes." I sat there, vision blurry, head pounding, listening to my family, the same family whose lifestyle I completely funded, mock my medical condition. "Sure," I said quietly. "You're right. I'll stop pretending." They seemed satisfied, thinking they called my bluff. Little did they know what I actually meant. The next morning, I called my financial advisor and lawyer. Within 48 hours, I had a plan in place. I didn't announce anything. I simply stopped paying. No more mortgage payments for my parents. No more tuition for my sister's kids. No more bailing out my brother's business failures. And most importantly, I canceled all the credit cards I'd been providing them. For 3 weeks, nothing happened. Then the call started. First from my sister. There must be some mistake with the tuition payment. Then my mother. The mortgage company called. "Did you forget to make the payment?" My brother was more direct. "My card got declined at the restaurant." It was embarrassing as hell. I gave them all the same response. "Sorry, I'm not feeling well." Probably just seeking attention though. The realization dawned on them slowly, like a creeping tide. By week 5, the panic set in. My sister showed up at my door unannounced. "This isn't funny anymore. The school is threatening to remove the kids." "Headaches aren't funny either," I replied calmly. "But you all seem to think mine were hilarious." My parents called a family meeting, which I declined to attend due to, you guessed it, a migraine. The irony wasn't lost on me. By month 2, the apologies started rolling in. Suddenly, everyone was concerned about my health. My mother sent links to migraine remedies. My sister offered to drive me to appointments. My brother asked detailed questions about my symptoms. "Funny how you all believe in my condition now," I remarked during a phone call with my mother. "We always believed you," she insisted. "We just thought you were exaggerating. The same way I'm exaggerating about not funding your lifestyle anymore." The silence on the other end was deafening. I hung up and leaned back in my chair, massaging my temples. The constant stress from my family had been a major trigger for my migraines, something my neurologist had pointed out during our last session. Since cutting them off financially, I'd noticed a slight decrease in frequency, though the intensity remained the same. That evening, my phone buzzed with texts from my brother. He'd gone from angry to desperate in record time. "Look, I know we were insensitive, but this is getting serious. The bank is threatening foreclosure on my business loan." I didn't respond. Instead, I scrolled through old family photos on my laptop. Birthdays, holidays, vacations, all funded by me. In almost every picture, I was slightly apart from the group, the designated photographer or the one making arrangements while they enjoyed themselves. How had I not seen it before? I wasn't family. I was the family bank. Update 1. 3 months into my financial strike, reality had fully set in for my family. My sister had transferred her kids to public school and taken a second job. My brother had to actually work for a living instead of playing entrepreneur with my money. My parents were considering downsizing their house. The family dynamics had shifted dramatically. No longer was I just the cash cow they could milk whenever they wanted. Now, I was someone they had to actually respect. The most surprising development came from my youngest nephew, who called me out of the blue one evening. "Uncle, are you really sick?" he asked, his voice small and concerned. "Yes, buddy, I am," I answered honestly. "Mom said you're not giving us money anymore because you're mad. But I told her maybe you need the money for doctor stuff." Out of the mouths of babes, I assured him I had plenty for medical expenses, but his concern touched me more than all the fake apologies from the adults. My sister must have overheard because she got on the phone after, sounding genuinely remorseful for perhaps the first time. "I'm sorry," she said, voice cracking. "Not because of the money, but because I didn't believe you were suffering. I was so used to you handling everything that I couldn't imagine you being vulnerable." It was the first apology that felt real. After that call, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, something I'd rarely had time to do when I was constantly solving my family's problems. The colors reminded me of the auras that preceded my worst migraines, but without the pain, just beauty. My phone rang again. My father this time. "Son, we need to talk," he said, his voice gruff but subdued. Face to face. I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop the next day, neutral territory. He looked older when I saw him, the lines on his face deeper. He'd lost weight. "Your mother and I are selling the house," he announced without preamble. "We found a smaller place, affordable on our retirement income." I nodded, waiting for the guilt trip, the request for help, the anger. It didn't come. "I didn't realize how dependent we'd become on you," he continued, stirring his coffee absently. "It wasn't fair. To any of us." "No, it wasn't," I agreed. "Your condition, the migraines. Are they getting any better?" The question seemed genuine, not a segue into asking for money. "Some days are better than others. The new medication helps." He nodded, looking me in the eye for what felt like the first time in years. I should have believed you. We all should have. As we parted ways, he awkwardly patted my shoulder. "We'll figure this out. Without your checkbook." I watched him walk away, his shoulders straighter than when he'd arrived, despite the financial burden he was now carrying. Maybe, just maybe, this forced independence was exactly what he needed. That night, I received an email from my brother. Not a plea for money, but a job application. He'd applied to work at my company, starting at entry level despite being in his 40s. "I don't expect special treatment," he wrote, "but I need to start somewhere, and I'd rather learn from you than anyone else." I forwarded it to HR with a note. Treat him like any other applicant. No favoritism. It was the kindest thing I could do for him. Update 2. 6 months in, my condition had stabilized somewhat with proper treatment and stress reduction. I received a letter from my parents, an actual handwritten letter, not a text or email. They acknowledged how they'd taken advantage of my generosity for years and how they'd failed me when I needed emotional support. They didn't ask for money, just forgiveness and a chance to rebuild our relationship. My brother took a different approach. He showed up at my house with a business proposal, a legitimate one this time. He'd been working with a neurologist on an app to help migraine sufferers track triggers and symptoms. He wanted my tech expertise, not my funding. "I've been an entitled ass," he admitted. "But seeing you deal with this made me realize I've been wasting my potential." I agreed to look at his proposal, making it clear this was a professional courtesy, not a family obligation. As for my sister, she invited me to dinner at her modest apartment, a far cry from the luxury condo I used to pay for. Her kids showed me their public school projects with the same enthusiasm they'd had for private school. She'd adapted, and maybe even grown. "We're doing okay," she told me. It was a wake-up call we needed. The kids actually seem happier with less stuff and more time with me. I nodded, noting how she'd lost the entitled edge that had defined her for years. Later that week, I had a follow-up appointment with my neurologist. My migraine journal showed a 30% decrease in episodes since cutting financial ties with my family. "Stress is a major trigger," the doctor reminded me. "Whatever changes you've made, they seem to be working." On my way home, I drove past my parents' house now with a sold sign in the front yard. A young family was walking around the property, the children running excitedly through what would soon be their new home. I felt a pang of something, not regret, exactly, but awareness of how much had changed in such a short time. My brother had started at my company 2 weeks prior. HR reported that he was punctual, hardworking, and humble, 3 words I'd never associated with him before. He brought his own lunch, took public transportation, and stayed late without complaint. When we passed in the hallway, he treated me like any other executive, not his personal banker. That weekend, I received an unexpected visit from my sister's ex-husband, the father of my niece and nephew. We'd never been close, especially after their messy divorce 3 years ago. "I wanted to thank you," he said awkwardly, standing on my doorstep. "For what?" "For making her grow up. She's different now." more present with the kids. We're actually co-parenting instead of fighting. He explained that my sister had asked him for help when the private school tuition disappeared, not for money, but for more involvement with the children. They'd established a routine, sharing responsibilities in a way they never had during their marriage. The kids are happier, he said. And honestly, so am I. As he left, I realized my financial revenge had ripple effects I'd never anticipated. Relationships were healing, not just within my immediate family, but in their extended connections as well. That night, I had a video call with a support group for chronic migraine sufferers, something I joined at my doctor's suggestion. When it was my turn to share, I found myself telling them about my family's transformation. Sometimes the disease shows you who really cares, said another member. And sometimes it shows people how to start caring. I let those words sink in as I drifted off to sleep, my head clear for the first time in weeks. Update 3. It's been 8 months since I stopped being my family's ATM. 8 months of them learning to stand on their own feet. 8 months of me focusing on my health without guilt or mockery. Last week, I hosted a family dinner, the first since that fateful night when they'd mocked my illness. The difference was palpable. My mother brought homemade food instead of expecting me to cater. My father asked thoughtful questions about my treatment plan. My sister arrived on time, having arranged her own childcare. My brother didn't once mention needing money. During dinner, my mother raised her glass. To health, she said, looking directly at me. And to lessons learned the hard way. I could have kept the financial freeze going indefinitely. I certainly don't need their love or approval at this point in my life. But seeing them actually change, actually grow as people, made me reconsider. After dinner, I sat them down for a serious conversation. I'm not resuming the blank checks, I stated clearly. That arrangement is permanently over. Their faces fell, but they nodded in understanding. However, I continued, I'm willing to help in specific ways. Education funds for the kids, emergency medical expenses, retirement planning for mom and dad, but with conditions and accountability. My brother spoke up. That's more than fair. More than we deserve, honestly. We drafted a family financial agreement then and there with clear boundaries and expectations on both sides. No more entitlement. No more mockery. No more taking advantage. As they left that night, my sister hugged me tightly. I'm glad you stood up to us, she whispered. We needed it. My mother lingered behind. I'm sorry we didn't believe you were sick, she said, eyes downcast. I think we didn't want to face that you could be vulnerable, because you've always been our rock. I'm human, I replied simply, with human limitations. She nodded, tears in her eyes. We know that now. The following week brought unexpected developments. My brother's migraine tracking app prototype was gaining interest from several medical technology investors. He'd built it nights and weekends while working entry-level at my company, proving his commitment. I'd like your feedback, he said during our weekly one-on-one meeting. Not as my brother, but as someone who understands both the tech and the condition. I reviewed his work, impressed by the thoughtfulness of the design. It actually addressed real pain points for migraine sufferers, not just flashy features to attract investors. This has potential, I told him honestly. I'd use this myself. The pride in his eyes was something I'd never seen before, not the arrogance of someone who expected praise, but the genuine satisfaction of earning it. My sister called that same day with news of her own. She'd been promoted at her new job, a position she'd earned through hard work, not family connections. The kids are proud of me, she said, her voice steady with newfound confidence. They tell their friends their mom is a manager now. My parents had settled into their smaller home, a modest but comfortable condo closer to their grandchildren. My father had taken up woodworking in the community workshop, creating furniture instead of buying it. My mother had started volunteering at a local hospital, ironically, in the neurology department. I'm learning so much about migraines, she told me during our weekly call. I had no idea how complex they are, how debilitating. I wish I'd educated myself sooner. Last weekend, I experienced a severe migraine episode, one of the worst in months. Instead of suffering alone as I'd grown accustomed to doing, I found myself surrounded by actual support. My sister brought prepared meals that followed my trigger-free diet. My brother dimmed the lights in my apartment and installed blackout curtains without being asked. My parents took shifts checking on me, never staying long enough to be intrusive but ensuring I had what I needed. No one questioned the severity of my pain. No one suggested I was exaggerating. They simply helped, quietly and effectively. Yesterday, I reviewed my finances with my advisor. The money I'd saved by not bankrolling my family's excesses had accumulated significantly. We discussed investment options, including a foundation for neurological research. You could name it after your family, my advisor suggested. I considered this. No, I decided, but I will involve them in running it. They've learned some valuable lessons about compassion. The irony isn't lost on me that it took financial revenge to teach my family basic human empathy. Money truly does talk, or in this case, its absence screamed loud enough for even my self-absorbed family to hear. My migraines still come and go. Some days are better than others. But the migraine of entitlement that was my family, that's in remission. And for the first time in years, our relationships feel honest. Not perfect, but real. Sometimes the best revenge isn't making others suffer, it's forcing them to grow up and face reality. And watching them become better people despite themselves? That's a satisfaction no amount of money could buy. As I sit here writing this, my phone lights up with a text from my brother. App investor meeting tomorrow. Nervous as hell. Any advice? I smile and type back. Be honest about your journey. The best innovations come from real problems. And that's the truth, isn't it? My family's problem was dependency disguised as love. My problem was enabling disguised as generosity. It took a medical crisis and financial revenge to break the cycle. Now we're building something healthier, something sustainable, something real. And my head doesn't hurt nearly as much as it used to.